Can I confess something this week to you? You guys want to hear a confession? Oh, it's a good one. All right. All right. Oh, gosh, dear Lord, please forgive me. So I'm at youth, uh, and we're talking outside, and if you guys don't know Daniel, Daniel's over here to my right. He's like, you just called me out, but Daniel's over there drinking coffee like no one's looking at him, and and Daniel, listen, Daniel is such a great person. Excuse me, he likes long walks on the beach. He enjoys. No. He he and I were talking, and we were talking about like world events, and then our conversation got over into conspiracy theories. And so Daniel's like, "Oh, I got this video for you to watch," and I was like, "All right, dude, just send it to me." So he sent me this video, and it's basically about, I mean, you can call it a conspiracy theory. I'm just connecting dots, but so it's so funny. So my wife and I Wednesday night were watching this video that he sent us, and we're sitting there in our bed watching it, and we got like aluminum foil hats on, because you don't want them to. Which, by the way, that's the whole reason why I don't have an Alexa in my house, because she records everything you say. And listen to me, and I'm afraid of what I say. So, and so we're watching it, and watching all these things, and we're just like getting all freaked out, kind of. But it's amazing. And so I was thinking, like, that's how sometimes people see the church. Sometimes what I'm about to read to you is going to be like a conspiracy theory, because what I'm going to read to you is something that is going on around you that you don't know what's going on. Make sense? So like right now in our church, like we're here and everything's great and everything's awesome, great worship, great everything, but you need to know there's other things that are going around this place that you know nothing about, or that you should be able to sense what's going on. Meaning this, that because we're in a building project, and because we're in the middle, like really right smack dab of in the middle of building and construction and planning, do you realize there's other constructions and plannings going on around us that we have to be aware of? Like you have to understand, because you go to this church and because you get the privilege of building God a house, you have to understand that you have a target on your chest. You have to understand. I mean, listen, Satan doesn't mind you going to church. But what he does mind is when you begin to make moves in your life to further the kingdom. Have you ever heard someone say, man, when I got off drugs and I started getting clean, or I put down the bottle, I started getting clean, man, my life got harder. Why? Because you then make yourself an enemy to Satan. Our church is an enemy to the gates of hell. Because the further we push and the further we go along and the longer God has his hand on us, you have to understand there are things that are at play that you cannot see, that you are going to be attacked. You have to understand that. And you can sit there and say, well, Jason, that's kind of the conspiracy theory, and we live in America now. Let me tell you something. We live in a crazy world. And we have to understand that there are powers that be above us that are trying to silence us and stop us from doing what God has called us to do. And so, when I was first beginning to kind of study this story, somebody asked me, like, when do you study? I'm like, I study on Monday, and then I kind of marinate through it and go through it. And what this study, what I thought was going to be like a 4-week series, is probably going to be like a 6-week series now. Because the further I'm digging into the story, the further I understand that there's so much more. Did you know that Balaam, we're going to talk about Balaam today. He's this prophet. We're going to talk about Balaam. Did you know he's mentioned in the Old Testament? He's also mentioned in the New Testament. And did you know that he's also mentioned in the book of Revelation? And the Bible talks about having churches that have this spirit of Balaam. That what he does and what he represents that has crept into the church. We just saw on the video bumper, it's money, it's power, it's greed, it's lust, it's fear. All of these things are being crept into our church. And so what we're going to do is we're going to study the story first, And then with that story, we're going to build and we're going to show you how like right now in the end times, as we're working through, as all this is being played out, how it also can infiltrate, his spirit can infiltrate into our church. Crazy stuff, right? So let me set you up. Here it is, Numbers chapter 22, verse number 1. Let's just read the text. We'll just jump right into it. It says this, then the people of Israel traveled into the plains of Moab. Let me stop you real quick and tell you that as you read, I want to remind you in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter number 2, I think it's verse number 8, God is talking to Moses, and he tells Moses, when you go through these lands and you begin to conquer these lands, you're going to go through Moab, and I don't want you to touch them. You're not going to fight them. Because Moab, check this out, Moab is basically the descendants of Lot. You remember Lot? Bible history people? Lot is the nephew of Abraham. Remember, Abraham and Lot were out on the plains, and Abraham says to Lot, "What do you?" They got to a place where their families just had to split up. It got too big. They were fighting with each other, and so he says, "Lot, where do you want to go?" And the Bible says that Lot pitched his tent towards Sodom. Remember the story? And then next time you see Lot, he's in the city gates, and he's a leader in this city. He's a baller, shot caller, right? Hanging out, making all this stuff. He's an influential person. And then the angels come in to destroy the city, and Abraham works a deal out with God, says, you got to pull Lot out. And so Lot gets pulled out with his family. You know the story. They're running. His wife looks back and turns into a what? A pillar of salt, right? So now Lot's left with his 2 daughters. They go hide out in a cave. This is the Bible. This is like Jerry Springer stuff right here, man. This is like, so the daughters are like, they just saw their city explode, basically, and burn up. And they're in this cavern with their dad, and they're like, let's get him drunk because we ain't going to have no husband in here. It's just him. They get their father drunk. They have children with their father, and one of the children's name basically is Moab. And they have the Moabites. And God says to Moses, as you go through, skip over that because I promised Lot and his descendants a certain portion of land, and that's their land, and you're not to take it. Crazy, right? But here's even crazier. So this king that we're going to talk about, Balak, is looking over at the plains, and he sees all the Israelites, and they're scared to death because there's so many of them. And we learned last week that he got fearful, and he was afraid that they would come in and destroy. But here's the problem. He didn't know the promise. He didn't know the promise. And so a lot of times in your life, you do things irrational and out of fear because you know why? You've forgotten the promise that God has said. And so you do dumb things. And you act out of fear because you are like, oh, I forgot the promises of the Lord. Make sense what I'm saying? And so this fear drove this king to then call this prophet named Balaam over and say, I want you to curse those people. So here we go. Here it is. You ready? Verse 7. Let's skip down to verse 7. Balak's messengers, who were the elders of Moab and Midian, set out money to pay Balaam to place a curse upon Israel. They went to Balaam and delivered Balak's message to him. Verse 8, stay here overnight, Balaam said, and in the morning I will tell you whatever the Lord directs me to say. So the officials from Moab stayed there with Balaam. Let me remind you, Balaam is not a Jew. He is not an Israelite. He is a Gentile. Okay? He doesn't sacrifice to the Lord. He doesn't go to their tabernacle. He doesn't worship with them. He just is a prophet hanging out, and this is what he does for a job. Verse 9 says this, that night God came to Balaam. Did Balaam go to God, yes or no? No. God went to who? To Balaam. God went to him. You have to remember that. That's very important. So the Lord is the one who came to him. So that night God came to Balaam and asked him, who are these men that are visiting you? Verse 10, Balaam said to God, Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent me with this message. Look, a vast horde of people has arrived from Egypt, and they cover the face of the earth. Come and curse these people for me. Then perhaps I will be able to stand up to them and drive them from the land. Verse 12. But God told Balaam, do not go with them. Do not go with them. What did he say? Do not go with them. You are not to curse these people, for they have been what? Blessed. They're my people. They belong to me. No matter what plans the enemy has for you, listen to me, when you belong to God, you are His. No matter what curses people lay against you, you belong to Him. And God says, I will go to this prophet. I don't even know he knows who I am, but I'm going to go to him. And I'm going to tell him, you can't touch them. They're mine. They're mine. Verse 13 says, the next morning Balaam got up. And he told Balak's officials, go on home. The Lord will not let me go with you. What's amazing is he only told them half. He didn't tell them the rest. He just said, go home, God won't let me go. He didn't say why. He didn't say these are God's people, they are blessed. If you touch them, you're gonna get the wrath of God on you. If he would have said that, they would have been like, all right, we're done. We're just going to have to just go home and just figure another plan out. That's what should have happened, but it didn't. Keep reading. Verse 14 says, so the Moabite officials returned to King Balak and reported, Balaam refused to come with us. That is not what took place. That is not what took place. He didn't come with us because God refused to let him curse his people because they are. You see what I'm saying? It's only half the story. Verse 15 says this, then Balak tried again. And this time he sent a larger number of even more distinguished officials and those who had sent the first time. Then went to Balaam and delivered this. They went to Balaam and delivered this message to him. This is what Balak, son of Zippor, says. Please don't let anything stop you from coming to help me. I will pay you very well and do whatever you tell me. Just come and curse these people for me. Verse 18, look at his response. But Balaam responded to Balak's messengers, even if Balak were to give me his palace filled with silver and gold, I would be powerless to do anything against the will of the Lord my God. I want you to remember that statement. Because as we read this story and we go through and you're going to see what transpires in the next couple of weeks, I want you to remember what he says. Because what's amazing to me is, and what really struck me odd, for so long this verse bothered me. Because I couldn't decide based on this verse, was he a good guy or was he a bad guy? What was this prophet a prophet that was somebody that God used, or somebody that God said, okay, he's not with us and the Israelites, but he's a good guy? Like, is God vouching for him, or is he vouching for God? Makes sense what I'm saying? But I'm going to tell you, the more I read this and the more I went to look in the other verses, because what's amazing about this particular prophet is that when you read the Bible and you read the Old Testament, you don't get a whole lot of dialogue of stuff like this. This is so unique in the Bible. Like, you have this particular prophet that's not a prophet from Israel, and there's a lot of false prophets that ran around. He wasn't the only one who did this. But yet this particular one, God spent some time on it. It even got to the point where in Joshua, they even name him when he was killed. And then the disciples talk about him. And then John in the book of Revelation talks about his spirit lingering on in the church. It's almost like the prophet that won't go away. And he says, hey, he's my God. I don't think he said that out of a reverence or that he worshiped God. I think he said that because in his mind, he's the one that brings the curses. He's the one that brings the blessing. So he's the one that says, this is the God who works for me. You pay me, I can make him do what you want. To make him do what you want. I'm going to steal my own thunder, but listen, this is what happens in churches today. You go to churches, And the leadership says, you do this for me, and I will do this for you. They make deals. Hey, you side with me, and I'll give you a position of power. Hey, you side with me, and I'll make it to where God will bless you. Hey, you side with me, and you understand I'm the one that's right in the room. And you know what? Hey, listen, let's make a deal. Can I tell you something? There are no deals to make. The cross made the deal, sealed the deal, right? The Bible talks about the Holy Spirit sealing us. He's the one who does it. It's not a prophet. It's not a man. It's not a bunch of elders or a bunch of leadership. It's only God who runs a church. And we are His, and He is ours, and we do what He tells us to do. End of story. And you have to be aware of this, because this spirit has crept over into our churches, where we see pastors are like, I got to go buy a private jet. Well, baby needs a private jet. Mama needs some new shoes. And people are buying this hook, line, and sinker because it's greed. Does that make sense what I'm saying? When I show you later and I show you Revelation, it's going to rock your world. Because you have to understand, this is our culture. You go to a third world country where you got sewers in the ditch and no one's really greedy a whole lot. But in America, the land of plenty, we're very greedy. It's in us. It's around us. Listen, okay. Do you know why Google is in trouble and Facebook is in trouble with the government people? Do you know why? Because they are watching you. And they are reading everything that you do online, and they are responding everything that they do in the internet based on your responses. That's not conspiracy. That's reality. And they keep changing how you respond to the internet based on your reactions, and they are reading everything that you are doing. See, y'all are like, I'm putting my hat on now. Listen to me. Satan does the same thing. He watches you. Just like the king is watching the Israelites over them, watching what they do, how they react, how they respond. What gets this church motivated? Where's the weakness of this church? I'm going to tell you where our weakness is. It's us. It's me. It's you. And we have to know this, because what that should do is should drive us on our face before the Lord, knowing that He's the one who has to protect us. Because that's why He says, when you are weak, I am strong. God doesn't need you to fight the battle or the war. He just needs you to be obedient. He just needs you to worship, to study Him, spend time with Him. He doesn't ask you to pick up a sword. He says, pick up this sword. If you pick this up and put this into your heart and mind, I'm going to tell you, you will change the world. But we're like, hold up, I gotta check Facebook real quick. You know what the verse today on Facebook was? I don't know, I don't care. And it's so crazy because I talk to people, they're like, hey, well, you didn't call me this week. Maybe I didn't call you this week. Well, you didn't see my Facebook post? How narcissistic do we have to be to think that everybody in your Facebook page has the time in their life to read your post? Come on now. I don't have time to read it. If you have an issue or you got a problem, I need to go to the hospital, I need to pray with you, text me, call me. Show up y'all know where I live. I hear you. You drive by and you honk. I'm trying to put my pants on. I'm like, who's that? Honking in my driveway. He says this, but Balaam responded to, verse 18, to Balak's messages. Even if Balak were to give me his palace filled with silver and gold, I would be powerless to do anything against the will of the Lord my God. He says this, verse 19, because, but The very first word of 19 is what? But. I can't do anything without God, but. Early on in my marriage, I was having these deep conversations with my wife, trying to prove to her how right I was and how wrong she was. And me thinking I was slick, I would say this, but I love you, but I have to prove a point. And I remember, like, after the third time we had one of those talks, she looked at me and she goes, if you ever follow I love you with but again. I said, what are you going to do? Sexy girl. She goes, don't sweet talk me. I'm sorry, boo. Verse 19. But stay here one more night. Look what he said. My boy stayed. He's like, hey, let's try it again. Y'all do the same thing. God, just please, let's just do this. And God tells you what to do. God speaks into your heart. God, you hear it through a message. You hear it through worship. And God says, do this. You're like, okay, maybe tonight God will change his mind. He said, but let's stay here one more night. And I will see if the Lord has anything else to say to me. Like, go get your money, boy. That night, God came to Balaam and told him, listen, since these men have come to you, get up and go with them, but do only what I tell you to do. Let me give you, real quickly, there's 3 encounters that Balaam actually has with the Lord, and we're just going to talk about the first 2 just really, really quick. The first one is this. His first encounter with God, Balaam only told them part of what God said. He did not fully disclose what God had instructed him to do, because Balaam, his whole goal was to profit from this. I don't need people leading our church that are more worried about their own profit versus the profit of, not profit, but profit of God's people. We need leaders and teachers and pastors that are concerned about us as people. Not concerned about what they can get from God's people. And it's so funny. It's crazy because everyone, when they're caught, they always like to blame somebody else, right? It's always somebody else. You ever notice that? It's always somebody else's fault. We live in that culture too. Second thing is this, is the second thing that Balaam, his second encounter was that Balak brought more influence and more money. If God is working in your life and he's trying to get you to a certain place and you're fighting it and you're fighting it and you're fighting it, and you may feel like you jumped the first hurdle. Listen to me. What the enemy does, he comes with you with double. More money, more influence. Listen to me. More money, more influence, more power. And so all Balak was doing was, he's thinking we're in a negotiation now. Oh, maybe that wasn't enough. Maybe I'll go back and give him more. It's like a car dealer. Have you ever been to the car dealerships where you sit down, they go, write down what you want to pay for the car. You ever been there? Yeah, I'm like, great, okay, give me the paper. 0. Take that. It doesn't work that way. All right, fine, I'll entice it. I'll add another 0 to it. Huh? How about 00? You know, and that's kind of how the old school way of, negotiating a car, right? And I remember like the dealers used to have that black book they used to carry around, right? And they used to take that black book out. I'll tell you what I'll give you for that car. How's that look? Right? It's a game. It's a game. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is not a game. Because you're talking about God's people, and you're talking about our children's children, and you're talking about our next generation, and you're talking about our marriages, and you're talking about our livelihoods, you're talking about our peace in our lives and things that we want. But remember, at this time, the children of Israel are in the valley living their life, and all this negotiation is taken up. So I got a feeling there's probably some negotiation right now going on. There's probably a couple demonic beings that are like, I got to attack Renewal Church. And God's like, you ain't touching my people. You're not gonna put your hands on them. Come on now. But you know what we do? We leave the protection of where we're supposed to be, and we're like, what's up? I can take you on. You ain't so big and bad yourself. And you put yourself in situations where you shouldn't be, and then you're able to be attacked. You got to be careful. Let me give you this definition of greed, because this is all about greed with right now in this moment. Because he's like, let's just stay here and let's see if God's going to change his mind. He didn't want to see, he knew what God wanted, but what he wanted was something else of what God wanted. Listen to me. It's called greed. Let me give you the definition of greed. An intense and selfish desire for something. An intense and selfish desire for something, especially, listen to this, wealth, power, or food. Oh. If it wasn't for my wife, I would live at a buffet. Me and my kids were little. We're like, where y'all want to go eat? We were like, let's go to the Golden Corral. And he's like, no. Of course, one time she went, and I don't think she ate anything. It's like, I don't want people touching my food. Like, well, how do you think it gets to your table when they deliver it to you? She's like, I don't know. But I don't want people breathing on my food, touching my food, looking at my food. She's like, I can't do it. I was like, man, how about a Chinese buffet? She's like, even worse. And me and my kids are like, we're dying. We're like, come on, it's so beautiful. Look at the spread. She won't do it. She won't do it. But it is kind of funny how we go to church. And we're like all like pious, right? We're all religious. And they were like, well, y'all want to go to lunch? Let's go to Golden Corral. Gluttony. Someone said, it's not the fact that it's bad, it's just too much of a good thing can be bad, right? Like honestly, like we eat, we live in a world now where we eat and it's like we don't eat when we're full, we eat till we pass out. Right? I'm surprised. Honestly, I'm really surprised. Golden Corral doesn't have beds. Right? You think about that. Like, everybody's just eating until they get in a food coma. Like, just lay a tent on the table, just take a nap. Or maybe just like a bunch of lazy boys with TVs in front of it, right? Isn't that kind of how Thanksgiving is? Oh, it's such a wonderful holiday. We sit on, God, we thank you for this smorgasbord of food. No, we eat till we all pass out. And we watch football, right? Which, by the way, is around the corner. Amen? God is good. God is good. Whew. Somebody's like, I hate August. I'm like, I love August. Bring the heat. Because I know once it's done. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Let me give you this verse real quick. Proverbs 28:22 says this. Greedy people try to get rich quick, but don't realize they are headed for poverty. Listen to me. I'm not beating you up because you played the lottery, but your chances of winning are slim to none. And if you do hit it, that's why they call it the lottery. Right? I mean, there's like 1 in a billion. Woo, I hit it. And chances are the people that hit the lottery within a couple years, what are they? They broke as a joke, baby. Y'all know it. I just read an article. Adrian Peterson, football player, he made $100 million playing football. Today, broke. How? Y'all were like, Richard's like, how? I'm like, I would like to try how. I don't know how, Richard, but I would like to give it the old college try. I mean, right? I mean, that's our world. I mean, how do you blow through that much money? I'm sure we could go back and trace it, but I'm just saying, he's not the only one. It happens to a lot of people. The Bible says greedy people try to get rich quick, but don't realize they're headed for poverty. Let me give you 6 ways that greed destroys your life. You ready? Just real quickly. Number 1, greed attacks everyone and everywhere. I am greedy. You are greedy. And if someone says to you, well, I'm not greedy, just stay away from them because they are. Because now you know they're also greedy and a liar. Amen? Now, how come you don't hang on? Because you're a greedy liar. I'm not greedy. See, there you are. Yes, you are. Number 2, greed whispers and tells you more is better. Listen to me. More is not better. More is not better. That's our culture, though. More. Get this, get that, get this, get that. Work harder, work harder. Give your kids more, because if you give your kids more, they will grow up better than you. No, they are being raised by you. That's why they're jacked up and messed up. Oh. Right? Getting them more stuff is not going to do anything for them. Take them to a third world country. Save up your Christmas money. Take their behinds to a third world country. Show them how kids really live in the world. I guarantee you, they will come back, and next Christmas they say, what do you want? They're like, I don't want nothing. I'm good. I'm good. I got a toilet that works. I got deodorant. I can brush my teeth. I can comb my hair. I got shampoo. I got clothes that fit. Are you kidding me? I can always find something to wear. Listen, greed makes it all about you. That's what greed does. It's all about you. Balaam, it's all about you. Let's stay here. So as the longer I stay, the more money's being thrown my way. I ain't going nowhere. Greed makes it all about you. 4, greed is so powerful, it has the ability to shift your focus. Greed will change the direction of your house. Greed will change the direction of your marriage. Greed will change the direction of your future. Greed will change everything about who you are and what you're about. It will take your boat and turn it completely a different direction. Greed. Greed can take our church and destroy our church. Greed. There are greedy churches today. There are churches that only think about themselves, that live within their walls, that do their functions. You know, if you want a greedy church, just call yourself a country club. Because that's what it is. You pay your tithe, you get to go hang out with certain people that also pay their tithes, and y'all get to hang out and talk about how great you are. Meanwhile, you're the only ones in the room. Greed, listen, makes you tunnel vision. It takes your focus from here to here. Because you only have one thing and more, and that in mind, and that's just more. I want more. I want more. I want more. Think about how greedy you can get in marriage, where you say to your spouse, give me more of you, more of you, more of you, more of you, more of you. But yet you don't give any of yourself. See, marriage isn't 50-50, it's 100-100. It ain't about you giving half. You get half at the end if it don't work out. Am I right or wrong? Am I preaching the truth? So while you're in it, just give it all. Because you ain't going to keep none of it at the end. And then you're going to be like, I got too much. I don't want to give that person all of this. So then you find ways on how not to give that person that. Had a buddy of mine one time, true story. He was a young guy. He got married really, really young. I think under 5 years, he was getting divorced. And his marriage was it became this war of the roses, so to speak, where it was so bad. And he told his wife, listen, as they were divorced, he said to her, you can have everything. She goes, what? He goes, you can have all the furniture. You can have the TV. He said, I just need a truck. My truck, it's not paid for, but I need my truck to get back and forth to work so I can survive. But you can have it all. She was ticked. Well, how come you don't want this? It's like, I'm giving everything to you. Well, that's not what I want. But what do you want? I don't know. There are some people in life, no matter what you do, they're just not happy. And that's the whole thing. If you get it all, listen to me, if you get all of it, that ain't going to satisfy you. Greed allows your ego, your pride, and your worth ethic, listen, to go unchecked. Greed. What is this about? What is our church about? Why do we do what we do? Why do we spend the money that we spend the money on? What's the purpose? What's the plan? All right, you ready for the last part? We'll close. There are two ways that we fight greed, just only two. If you do these two things, you will keep greed out of your life, I promise you. Number one, you ready? Contentment in living. Be content. Just be content. That means when you wake up in the morning and you don't like what you see, be thankful that you woke up in the morning. Be thankful you can see. Be thankful you got a reason to wake up. Oh, I wish I was 20 pounds lighter. Yeah, stand in line. I wish I didn't pass out every time I tied my shoe. But, hey, my kids walk by the house. Why is Dad on the floor? I'll pass it out. She's like, oh, he's just tying his shoe. He's fine. He'll wake up. He's good. He's good. Dog will lick his face. He'll be fine. Be content. Are we content? Is our card, are we content? Are we happy with where we're at? I'm not talking about satisfied. I mean, just happy. Just are you happy? Man, I wish I made a little bit more money. Yes, okay, so would everybody else in the world. But are you happy with what you got? Are you thankful? You're going to eat today, right? There's people that are wake up this morning and they don't know where their meal is coming from, but you know. Listen, if you ain't got money to go out to eat, you know you can go home and make some toast. You with me? There might be a can of something in there that we can put together. Are we happy? We don't have a building for our church yet, but are we happy here? Are we thankful for what the Lord has given us? See what I'm saying? Are we happy and content? Because a little bit more is not going to make you happy. I'm just telling you, it's not going to get you there. It's not going to help your marriage. If you win the lottery, you'll probably end up divorced. Just telling you. That statistics will tell you that if you win the lottery or you have a massive amount of money that's dumped on you at any part of your life, you're going to end up being more miserable then than you were with nothing. Find contentment. Paul talks about finding contentment in your life. Let me give you the second thing that will fight greed. You ready? Generous giving. Generous giving. I want to talk to you about generous giving because this is so powerful. And I was thinking, I had a conversation this week. Actually, I think it was last week, with our missionaries that were friends of ours that you guys know, Brian and Lindsay Brewer in Laos. And so we were talking to them, and what we found out was there are no churches in that area anymore that are helping provide for that school or for that ministry. So I said to Brian, I said, man, we'd like to jump back in there because we have been working with you guys since 2007, and we want to continue to make an impact in that country. I said, what do you have that can help, that we can help with, that our church can somehow maybe partner this Christmas? Because Christmas is around the corner, people. Whoop, whoop, right? So I'm thinking about, I'm already thinking about Christmas and what can our church do at our Christmas to make an impact around the world. And so he said, he goes, I got this lady that I met on the side of the road, and she sells brooms. And I was like, brooms? Like those? He's like, yeah, she makes out of reeds. She makes those Asian brooms. If you ever go to Asia, you'll know they love those little brooms. You always see them. They're sweeping everything up. The dogs, the kids, they're sweeping everything. So I said, okay, so what? So tell me the story of this lady. He said, well, I started talking to her, and I found out that she had like seven kids. And all of her girls are they're all over. And I found out that her oldest child, who's in her 20s, was living over in Thailand. And she was working in bars. And not only she was working in bars, she was also prostituting herself. But he said to me, you got to remember that when they're that poor, in a country that in the Buddhist culture, there's a certain word they have that you do whatever you can to provide for your family because your family gave you life, and it's your responsibility by any means necessary to give back to your family, which probably wouldn't be a bad thing to have in our culture today. Just saying. And so she was doing that. She came back to Laos, and Brian got to meet her, and he's been talking to her. And what's crazy is that this girl's a Christian. She's a believer. But she doesn't have the background of believing in Bible teaching that we have from a Puritan background where your body's the temple of the Holy Spirit. You know what I'm saying? So it's a different culture. And so he said to the oldest daughter, he said, let me help you and your family because their dad left years ago with their mother and all these kids, and they have nothing. Nothing. He said, if I could get you in school and help you do all this stuff, will you be a part of it? And so she's like, sure. I mean, I would love to be able to provide for my family that way or some other way. And so he's talking to her. Then he finds out that the 15-year-old is doing the same thing that the older sister's doing. And so he's saying to her, look, okay, listen, if I put you in school, then will you help me with this thing? I'm going to try to work something out where I can help your family, and we can somehow make these brooms with your mother, and then we can make a bunch of them, and we can sell them. We can have a business for you. So you can probably be so big to employ maybe 6 or 7 of your friends, and we can do something with this so you guys don't go to these bars and you guys don't sell your bodies. And so he's like, are you guys going to church? And she goes, well, there's a church in our town, but I can't go there. Do you know why the local prostitute can't go to church? The reputation. So he's like, okay, we'll get you into our church in our village. And so he's made a way for her to be there and come to church over there. And so he's asking us, and so I guess I'm just kind of sales pitch, not really sales pitch, I'm just telling you what we're going to do for Christmas. So our Christmas offering this year is we're going to fund a business of making brooms for this family. We're going to buy the reeds. So the reed harvest is between October and November, but they're real cheap in like the early parts of the year, but like now the harvest isn't happening, so they're really expensive. And she's learning, wow, if I make more than I need, I can store back extras for the higher time of the season, and we can make more money on the back end. And she's learning how to have a business and how to provide for her family. Is that something we want to be a part of? Are you willing, and I'm just asking you, pray about it, but we're probably going to take up an offering around Christmas time, and everything we collect in our Christmas offering is going to go to pay for brooms. How crazy is that? Listen, and I said to him, how much is it going to cost to have these brooms? You ready for this? You sitting down? $2,000. $2,000. If we raise $2,000 by the end of the year, listen to me, we will take 2 young ladies out of prostitution and put them at home and put them back in the church and give them a life where they don't have to sell themselves. Right? So what we want to do as our church is we feel like that, maybe I'd say we, I guess I just told everybody. So I think we should do this. I think it's something we should pray about. I think it's something that we should be able to impact somebody else. I don't know about you, but I have a daughter. I don't ever want my daughter to think that she has to go do that. And I don't want somebody else's daughter to have to go through that either. So would you pray with me on that as we find contentment in our lives that collectively this Christmas we're going to start a business. And it's going to be brooms. And we're actually going to buy reeds. And Brian said that he will help them harvest the reeds, and he will help keep the reeds, and he will help them. And meanwhile, him and his family, what they're doing is they're putting these girls through school and helping them get an education. I want to make an impact. I just don't want to do nothing in my life. When I die, I want to make an impact for somebody. I want to help somebody change. I want to go to heaven one day and people go, you're the reason why I came to Christ. Because I was walking down the street and I met this family that was selling brooms, and they started telling me about the gospel because I knew something was different about them. And they were telling me about a church all the way back in America that invested in them, and now they're on the side of the road giving the gospel out to people. You don't think Jesus can use that? Let me leave with this verse. Timothy says this, as Paul's writing to Timothy. He says, teach those who are rich. Let me tell you something right now. Before you start pointing the finger on who is rich, if you live in America, listen to me. If you live in America, you are rich. Our poorest, homeless people live better than most of the people around the world. If people around the world get cold, they don't have someone give them blankets. If you live in this country, you are rich. Why do you think people are dying to get in here, risking everything to get into this country? God has blessed it. Teach those who are living in America, rich in this world, not to be proud and not to trust their money, which is so unreliable. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our what? Enjoyment. Never, ever, ever make an excuse why God's blessings upon your life. If you're able to drive a nice car, you drive it and you smile and you say, God gave me this. And they'll say, where are you going? I'm picking my pastor up to take him out to eat. Come on now. Enjoyment. Enjoy what God has given you. Isn't that what it says? He says, tell them who use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always, always, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, listen, they will be storing up their treasures as a good foundation for the future, so that they may experience what? True life. Can you imagine being Adrian Peterson and God saying to you, I'm going to give you $100 million, and at this time you're going to have none of it left? What are you going to do? Do you think he said, I wish I would have given it all away? I wish I would have made an impact on people's lives. Listen to me. We are rich. We in this country are rich. And it is our responsibility to steward what God has given us. And we do that by being generous. Will you bow your heads with me? You have to bring in captivity that